Thanks for joining us at I Can Make Shoes. Today we're going to go through a very simple pattern for a high-heeled peep toe. Today we're going to be showing you how to make a very basic peep toe pattern. So first you want to start with having your shoemaking last already taped up, and you'll need a piece of paper, a craft knife, a pencil, and a ruler and some scissors as well. So first thing we're going to do here is just get our key lines in. So I like to get a line down the front and down the back of the last, and this is just to use as a guide. Then what we're going to do is get our back height point in, so about a finger's width from the top, and we'll just make a little mark there. Then I'm going to draw in a really plain court shoe kind of shape, and we'll actually add the peep toe in afterwards. So I've drawn in my court shoe shape, and I'm going to draw in my peep toe. Now when you're doing the peep toe, you can have a really classic shape like that, or you could have really any other shape you wanted it to be, if you wanted it to be a bit smaller or a bit wider. For this pattern I'm going to leave that as a bit of a classic one. I'm also just going to slightly straighten up this line here. Okay? So that's ready for me to turn into a pattern now. The first thing that I need to do is add in a side seam so that I can lay this flat as a 2D pattern. So I always like to do that on the inside of the last because it's the most discreet place to put it. So I'm just going to draw in a line straight down there like that. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is take my craft knife and cut this off the last. Once you've removed all of the excess tape so that you can see your design a bit more clearly on the last, we want to actually peel it off and lay it flat onto the paper. So I always start by peeling at this side seam which we've put in there. Alright, so once you've peeled off your tape, we want to lay it flat onto the paper. And we're going to stick it down by the top line first. So just forget about everything else except the top line. Now once you come to this back section here, you can see that we've got the line there which we drew on, which was the back of the shoe. I'm going to cut that about 3/4 of the way up, and then continue laying it flat like that. Okay, so we can see now that this is our back seam because we had the line there from the back, and we know that this area here is our side seam, and that's going to connect here and here. So once we've got that flattened out by the top line, we want to go through the rest of it and flatten the rest of it out. So I'm also just going to flatten that peep toe area there because that's also considered a top line. Okay, so starting here, I'm going to flatten it out as much as I can, like that. And when I get to this back section here, you can see that it won't actually let me push it down any further because of the curve that we've got there. So I'm just going to take my scissors and put a few snips along the feather edge, which is the bottom, until it will lay flat. Okay, so I'll do the same thing on the other side. Alright, so we've successfully turned the 3D pattern into a 2D pattern, and now we just need to add our allowances in. Okay, so we're going to add in 3 allowances here, keeping it nice and simple. The The first one is going to be our folding allowance, which is going to go on the top lines of the pattern. So that's going to be about 5 mil in width. So I'm just going to put that in by eye. And the other top line that we have is obviously our peep toe, and we want that to be folded as well. The second allowance that we're going to put in is our seam allowance. Now that's also going to be 5 mil in width, and I'm going to place it on the inside seam like that. The reason that I'm only going to put the seam allowance on one side is because we actually want to try and make our pattern just a little bit too small. When working with leathers especially, they have a natural stretch to them. So when you make the pattern just a little bit too small, it means that you have to physically stretch your upper to fit perfectly on your last. So with that in mind, I'm not going to put any allowance on the back, and I'm not going to put any allowance on the other side of that seam. So the third allowance we're going to put in is called our lasting allowance. This is the excess that we put around the feather edge of the shoe in order to last the shoes around the underside of the last. So usually I put in about 20 to 25 mil approximately, something like that. And you want to try and follow the natural line of your pattern. Okay, so now we can cut it out. So now you can see that I've cut out my pattern. It's important to mention that you must remember to cut out this back section here as well. Okay, last but not least, we're going to label the pattern. So I like to put in here seam 5 mil, just so that you remember what it is. This is folding 5 mil. This is also folding 5 mil, and this is lasting 25 mil. Okay, one last thing we need to do with our pattern before we're finished is label it with the last number. So this pattern was done on this last here. This is a size 4 last, and the reference number is 1982. So it's important that you write on here size 4 ref 1982, so that you know what your pattern matches when you've got millions of these lying around. And that's a finished pattern for a peep toe shoe. Perfect. Thanks for watching. For more videos, subscribe to the I Can Make Shoes YouTube channel.